And welcome, rugby fans, to Rugby 411. As always, I'm your host. My name is Joshua Shibata. And, you know, a little bit of transparency. This video took a lot of thoughts and planning to put into. I was hesitant about making one. As I've made mention before, first and foremost, this YouTube channel has always been about promoting the sport of rugby, a sport that I and millions of fans around the world are absolutely crazy about, and trying to expand its interest and love here in the United States, where rugby is still very much a foreign commodity, to say the least. The same point, I've always wanted this YouTube channel to be more about the promoting, not necessarily about news stories per se, and definitely not about rumors. I've never wanted to be, well, at one point I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. And I used to run a site, a little bit behind the story of me, I used to run a site that did a lot of USC and UCLA football because I am a USC alumni, and I've had a few friends, surprisingly, who are UCLA alumni, and we're all football fans, college football fans especially. So I used to run a site that promoted both USC and UCLA football. A lot of that was, to promote the site, was dealing with rumors and possible news breaks to create interest. I always felt kind of a little shady about doing stuff like that because, that's not what you're kind of taught with broadcast journalism. You always wanted to have two or three sources to confirm things before posting it. But as things have evolved nowadays, especially with social media and everybody claiming to be broadcast journalists and websites that are legit and have credentials, it's all about breaking news, no matter how truthful it is, to get hits, to get interest, and to get, recognition. With any sport, rugby is no different. And especially when it involves Major League Rugby, the organization that, for me, I'm really trying to promote because it is the easiest pathway, I feel, for fans in America to understand, identify, connect to something that's very similar to what's already existing here with American sports. Major League Baseball, NFL, NHL, NBA. It's very identifiable. It's understandable, and Major League Rugby is no different. Now, with that being said, obviously there's always going to be news that breaks, especially as Major League Rugby grows. And right now, sadly, is probably one of the biggest and controversial news events surrounding Major League Rugby. And that's where we come with this video, and it's really, really important, or it really impacts myself as a fan, because as you see, I'm wearing an LA Giltinis jersey, because I'm from Los Angeles, and I've been a LA Giltinis fan, season ticket holder since day one, and I continue to support the team, and try to be as biased as possible, as you know, when I cover Major League Rugby for the last couple of seasons. But things have happened that involve not only the Giltinis, but also their Austin sister team, if you want to call them, the Gilgronis. And there's been a lot of rumors, possible news stories, but nothing is confirmed. But because it does impact so much of what I love about the sport, as well as people that I do know who work with the LA Giltinis organization, and it kind of really hits close to home, I felt it was very important for me to make a video in regards to this, because also I'm sure a lot of people are interested in it. And, it's funny because it also deals with expansion of Major League Rugby, which, oddly enough, is the biggest video on my YouTube channel. I'm fascinated by how people are so interested in that video in particular. So, putting it all together, I felt it was appropriate to make a video like this. But I want to put out the preface that a lot of this is hearsay, a lot of it is rumor. Nothing has been confirmed yet by Major League Rugby, by anybody in any organization, because sadly, as the story will be unfolding to you in this video, a lot of it is dealing with a lack of communication and sadly, too, a lack of transparency on the part of Major League Rugby. So, with that being said, let's get into it. This is the current status of the Giltinis and the Gilgronis in Major League Rugby. It is also technically kind of the state of union of Major League Rugby as we know of right now. I'm doing this video Wednesday. Things will be apparently more clear Friday, but thought this is an appropriate time. This is an appropriate time to make a video like this. So, in order for this to go through, because again, some of you who are watching this may not know the entire story, may not know exactly how it unfolded, so we have to go back to the end of last season with Major League Rugby. For those of you who know, we'll even go further than that. At a time, Major League Rugby had an Austin team, and that Austin team was going bankrupt, to be completely crystal clear about. The Austin team was going bankrupt. Major League Rugby was trying their hardest to keep that Austin team afloat. This was before the 2021 season. Now, when they were finding buyers for the Austin franchise, they were also trying to create interest in the creation of an LA franchise. They had a group, I believe from England, that was originally trying to create or trying to buy the LA franchise, and that kind of fell through. In steps in a gentleman named Adam Gilchrist. Adam Gilchrist, if you don't know, is a rather elusive individual. He is a multimillionaire who made his money off of a program, a fitness program called T45. I'm sorry, F45. And F45, if you're familiar with the concept of CrossFit, CrossFit is something that is kind of built around doing an extensive amount of exercising within a certain time frame. Every CrossFit session is an hour. It's always an hour because, again, they're trying to capitalize on people's time, that people don't have a lot of time to work out. But you give them an hour, CrossFit will get you into shape. You're in, you're out, let the hour, get on with your life. F45, their concept was, as the name implies, 45 minutes. So you get in, you get out, you save 15 minutes compared to CrossFit. Needless to say, F45, which originated in Australia, where Gilchrist is from, became a huge success. So much so that it was able to move over to America and had lots of investors in it. Mark Wahlberg was a big-time investor of F45. Now, Adam Gilchrist, a former rugby player himself, decided he wanted to invest in the LA franchise. The understanding was, from sources I've spoke to, that in order for, or what Major League Rugby wanted to have happen, was that Gilchrist can start the LA franchise, but he would have to also invest and support the Austin franchise in order for the Austin franchise to survive. Adam Gilchrist agreed to that, with now also to the understanding that eventually, because obviously how can one entity own two teams in the same competitive sports league, the understanding was that eventually the Austin franchise would be sold to another buyer once, they're able to get themselves financially situated. And then Gilchrist will be the sole owner of only the LA franchise. Paperwork was signed. Thus was born the Austin Gilgronis and the LA Giltinis. And again, if you don't know the origin of the names, Gilchrist was also trying to create a line of alcoholic beverages, which were named after himself, Gilchrist. And the Gilgroni is a Negroni, and the Giltini is obviously a Martini, which I have had a Giltini. Not too bad. As some people have commented, I don't know, they don't understand how I gave it 6 stars out of, I think it was 10 or something like that. 6 stars out of 7 or something like that I gave it. It gave it a weird rating. But anyways, it wasn't too bad. So, thus was the formation of 2 teams, both owned by Adam Gilchrist. And thus, things were smooth. Fast forward, the Giltinis were able to win the 2021 championship, which is still a great moment in my life. And we go into the 2022 season. The Gilgronis are ripping things up as they are starting to become a very formidable team, and so are the Giltinis as well. Now we go into the playoffs. All of a sudden, there was talk and rumor and rumblings that the Gilgronis were going to be kicked out of the playoffs. They were going to be removed because of apparently some investigations on their salary cap and the possibility that the Gilgronis were blatantly going over their salary cap to pay specifically international players. Now, this is where things get very murky and things are not 100% confirmed. What we do know is that nothing has actually been confirmed that the Gilgronis have actually violated any rules. What we can confirm, though, is that the Gilgronis were removed because the Major League Rugby organization, which is headed by George Killebrew, the commissioner, as well as the owners of each MLR team. They all have power and decision making. The question was, should the Gilgronis be removed from the playoffs because of possibly violating the salary cap rule? To which the other owners of the Major League Rugby team, now mind you, the Gilgronis were the first place team in the Western Conference at this time, very much a favorite to win the Major League Rugby Championship and Shield. And obviously, the owners, to no one's surprise, voted for them to be eliminated from the playoffs, to which they were. Now, this, of course, did not make Adam Gilchrist happy. And Adam Gilchrist gave an ultimatum that he will, if this ruling of the Gilgronis to be eliminated from the playoff was held up, he will remove his other team, the LA Giltinis, who were admittedly fighting for a playoff spot at that point. They did end up making it, though with the Gilgronis being eliminated, it helped them quite a bit with filling that empty space. Because the Gilgronis were removed, Mr. Gilchrist was going to take the LA team away from Major League Rugby as well. Basically, literally taking his ball and going home. And so again, the vote was put up to the other owners of Major League Rugby teams. Mind you, again, the Giltinis defending and reigning at the time Major League Rugby champions, had a good chance of possibly repeating. Gilgronis, ironically enough, the Gilgronis were going to be their biggest opponent to stop them from making the MLR finals. And again, to no one's surprise, the owners said, sure, let the LA team leave too. So both LA and Austin teams were taken out of the playoffs, even though technically they both qualified for the playoffs. So this is where you think the story ends. But no, it actually gets worse. Unfortunately, the F45 brand started to really take a turn for the worse. It's typical story of businesses that expanded a little too fast. It was not as popular. It basically became a fad, just very similar to CrossFit. A lot of people that were into it didn't want to do it anymore, so all the locations that they were expanding so quickly in America started to shut down. There are a few F45s in LA where I live, and yeah, they are not there anymore. And that was maybe last year when that happened. So very quickly, it started to become apparent that F45 was losing a lot of money, to the point that earlier in this year, they declared bankruptcy. To that point, Adam Gilchrist sold his shares, and also, interestingly enough, sold 2 of his homes in Australia. And even though, again, Adam Gilchrist has been as elusive as possible, I've never met him. Legit story, quite a few people in the Giltinis organization, including their players, have never met Mr. Gilchrist. Has completely disappeared from almost the face of the earth. So now the question is, well, what happens to the Giltinis and the Gilgronis when your owner, who theoretically may not have that much money anymore, disappears? The talk was, and I kind of helped break this story, was that the Gilgronis were actually found a buyer to sell. Apparently, that fell through. So the Gilgronis, who were supposed to have been sold, and again, that was the original idea to begin with, we're now still looking for a buyer. Talk is now that the LA Giltinis team, since the beginning of the year, have also been looking for a buyer, because now it's very, very apparent that Mr. Gilchrist does not have the capital, maybe not even the want to support 2 Major League Rugby teams. So now, the status of the Giltinis and Gilgronis is very much up in the air. Again, a lot of this is rumor. What a lot of people are saying is that the Giltinis have until the end of this week to find a buyer. The Gilgronis are pretty much done. The Giltinis have the possibility of finding a buyer. There are rumors that there is a British organization, a British group, led by former World Rugby TV executive Martin Cross, that has shown interest, very great interest, in possibly purchasing the Giltinis, which is kind of ironic because if you are following worldwide international rugby, this group also has some association with one of the biggest rugby organizations in England, Premiership Rugby, who just recently lost 2 of their teams because those 2 teams, the Wasps and the Worcester Warriors, are declaring bankruptcy. And sadly enough, that was at the very beginning of the season. They already played like 5 games, and both teams are now completely shut down. Players are left without homes, and those games are waived and stricken off the record books of this season. So, to a lot of people, it seems kind of weird that the Premiership is dealing with something like this, and now it's kind of going the same with MLR, and yet there's this group from England that's seen interest in the LA Giltinis. Now, granted, it's an LA franchise, that's pretty appealing, but, it's kind of weird how that's worked out. Now, there is again rumor and talk that it's possible that that English group has now withdrawn from purchasing the Giltinis. There's talk and rumor, again, this is all rumor, that Major League Rugby has raised the price of buying the Giltini franchise or establishing a franchise fee in LA, which the English group did not want to pay. There's also, again, a lot of talk that the Gilgronis franchise tag is very, very expensive, which has also scared off the original buyers from the Gilgronis. Whether or not any of that is true, again, what is still very much factual is that the Gilgronis are probably going to be no more. The Giltinis have the end of this week to find a buyer, or they will also be no more. Now, here's where things get very kind of personal with myself and very upsetting as a Major League Rugby fan. Throughout this whole entire process, nobody from the Gilgroni organization, and I'm talking about staff, players, nobody from the Gilgroni organization or the Giltinis organization, and this for a fact I know because I do know several people that work for the LA Giltinis in the ticketing office, have had no communication with either the heads of the Giltinis or the Gilgronis or with Major League Rugby themselves. So that means a lot of people and a lot of families are out of money and out of jobs. Some of them, especially the players, out of places to live. And again, with no communication whatsoever. There's also been, talk that a lot of the staff members, especially from the LA team, have not been paid for the last couple of months as well, though they have been working in the offices. Now, again, that's very, very upsetting because it's, you're talking about a huge organization like a huge sports organization that is not taking care of people that work for them or is not doing any kind of communication to let them know what's going on. And even worse is that, Major League Rugby has not even made any of this apparent to anybody. Now, again, there's also rumor that the reason why none of this has been coming out forth is that the commissioner, George Killebrew, has stepped down. He has actually been criticized and taken the hit for everything that's gone on, and so he has quietly stepped out of the commissionership of Major League Rugby. Now, again, that's all rumor. Nothing has been confirmed, but that's the talk of why nothing has been said. Because even Major League Rugby is trying to figure out who is going to be in charge as commissioner. On the flip side, too, for those of you who are interested in expansion, there was talk of a Chicago franchise starting in 2023 to add to Major League Rugby, but only once they figured out what was going on with these two franchises. Now that we don't know what's going on with these two, there is talk now amongst the owners that maybe they should not be expanding to the Chicago franchise, which is putting all the Chicago buyers now on hold. And again, there's rumor and talk that now the Chicago buyers don't want to buy the Chicago or start the Chicago franchise. So if anything, it is all a mess. It is a huge, huge mess. Now again, a lot of this is rumor. But from what I understand for sure, certainty, again, is that at least by the end of this week, possibly things will be revealed. And we're more than likely may not have one or two teams. We may not even have a Chicago franchise. But by the end of this week, things may be revealed to confirm all of that. Now, again, if the rumors are true that George Killebrew has stepped down from commissionership, it may be longer than that because they still need to find a new commissioner. But that's how things stand. And again, I know it might be a little confusing, and again, a lot of it is hearsay, but this is what we know. And that's why I decided to create this video. It's very much sadly seems like we will not have an LA franchise. We will not have an Austin franchise. We may not even have a Chicago franchise. The season is still a go, from what I understand. A lot of teams have already announced their re-signings or adding-ons of international players and such forth. So it seems like all the other teams are still going to go into the new season, understanding that, yes, we are having a season. But it's very frustrating as a Major League Rugby fan, as an LA fan, of everything that's happening. Now, what does that mean for me? I been thinking about this back and forth. I think it's really crappy what's going on to a lot of people that I know. I think it's horrible what Major League Rugby has done. But at the same time, I really want Major League Rugby to thrive and succeed because, again, I feel this is the easiest pathway for a lot of fans to jump onto rugby. International rugby only happens every so often. It's not nearly as popular as it is with other countries. It doesn't happen as often here as in other countries. So it's hard to gain interest and continue support from fans. Major League Rugby would solve that. Major League Rugby will also help develop stars, develop household names that will then feed into the national team. So it's easy for me to say, I don't want to watch Major League Rugby. I don't want to support them. I have plenty of rugby, and I do have plenty of rugby that I can watch elsewhere. I watch Premiership. I watch United Rugby Championship. I watch Six Nations. I watch Sevens. I watch Japanese. One rugby league. I watch so much rugby. I will have plenty to watch without Major League Rugby. But I really want Major League Rugby to survive because that's, I feel, again, the best way that rugby on a whole can strive in America. But what is going on right now is really inexcusable. And I hope that people do realize that as I continue supporting Major League Rugby, I am not happy with how any of this has turned out. Because there are, like I said, a lot of people I know who are out of jobs, who have been basically out of work for the last couple of months, who have been working for the last couple of months, and have had no clue of what's going on or if they should be looking for another job or not. Some of them have, but a lot of them have not. And again, that's a really, really crappy thing to do to some very, very good people. Also sucks for a lot of the players who are now out of homes and have to find new teams to play for, new contracts to sign. And with a lot of leagues already starting, it's hard for that to happen. So, yeah, that's how things go. And it's really sucky. So, but, yeah. Sorry, it really does suck. On a lighter side, going to try to flip it to a little bit better thing. I will be having another watch-along for the U.S. Women's the Women's Rugby Cup, World Cup, with the USA Women still competing for it. Had a lot of fun with USA's game against Italy. Unfortunately, USA coming up a little short in that game, losing 22-10. But USA has bounced back to beat Japan, and now we're going into the final game of pool play against a very, very tough Canadian team, which the USA, of course, our neighbors to the north, we're very familiar with. It's kind of a very important game for the U.S. because they need to do at least, not necessarily win, but they can't lose by a lot because they still have a chance to make it into knockout rugby. I'll explain that more when we watch the game, but it's kind of an important game for Team USA. So, if you want to join, I had a lot of fun last time. It will be on my YouTube channel. Again, that game is going to be 7:15 this Saturday. We'll be watching it on the YouTube channel. If you have the Peacock Network, watch it along with me. I will not be showing the game. I'll just be talking about it. If you have questions, I had a few questions last time. I answered those. It's a lot of fun. And again, it's to support the USA women's team, who have a very good chance of making the knockout rugby. And in knockout rugby, just like in any playoff format, anything can happen. USA has a very good chance of making it to a medal game. So that's going on Saturday. Again, sorry about kind of a lot of negativity in this video, but this is the way things are. Once things are kind of explained, hopefully Friday or hopefully Monday, I'll make another video to recap all that. But for those of you who are interested or wanted to know, that's the entire story of what's going on. So, yeah. So, anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. I really do. And as always, see you on Saturday, and I'll see you on the pitch.